My hands were shaking. I clasped them together, hiding the tremor as I smoothed the contract on the mahogany table. $280 million. The number felt like a fantasy, even staring at it in crisp black ink. At 63, I was supposed to be winding down. I'd accepted that Haverford Imports, the company my late husband Richard built from scratch, would slowly fade. We were a relic, a family business being eaten alive by global logistics giants. I thought my future was managing a graceful decline. Then, 6 months ago, Valerio Trovato had walked into my life. He sat across from me now, a vision of European effortless charm. His silver hair was perfect, his suit so exquisitely tailored it probably cost more than my car. He radiated a confidence that was almost hypnotic, his slight Italian accent making every word sound like a promise. "Clarissa," he said, his voice as smooth as aged port. "This partnership is more than an investment. It is the renaissance of a legacy. Richard would be immensely proud." A warmth spread through my chest at the mention of my husband. Richard had poured his soul into this company, working himself into an early grave at 58. I'd spent the last 8 years just trying to keep his memory afloat as the market turned against us. Valerio leaned in, his dark eyes intense. $280 million for a 70% stake. You, of course, retain full operational control. I am merely the silent partner, Clarissa, the capital you require to fight back. It was a miracle. A deal so perfect it made my teeth ache. My lawyers had vetted every line, every subclause. The money was real, sitting in an escrow account. Valerio Trovato's credentials, his holdings in shipping and real estate, all checked out. He was old money, diversified and solid. "The funds will transfer the instant you sign," Valerio continued, adjusting a gold cufflink. "We can have this finalized before lunch." My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. No more sleepless nights staring at payroll reports. No more laying off men and women who had worked for Richard for decades. This was salvation. I picked up the heavy, expensive pen. My signature, a simple scrawl of ink, was all that stood between Haverford Imports and its future. I took a breath, lowered the nib to the paper, and the conference room door burst open. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. Sierra stumbled in, her face pale and streaked with sweat. Her dark hair was a mess, pulled back in a haphazard ponytail that was already failing. She looked like she'd run a marathon. My world screeched to a halt. This was Sierra, my housekeeper's daughter. Her mother, Mariella, had been with me for 15 years. She was a quiet, efficient woman who kept my home running, a silent witness to my life. Sierra, at 28, was just Sierra. She helped her mother on weekends, attended community college, and was so quiet I barely registered her presence. She was background noise, and she had never, not once, interrupted a meeting. Valerio's associates, 2 men in dark suits sitting against the wall, straightened. One of them put his hand inside his jacket. Valerio himself didn't move, but his perfect smile tightened by a fraction. "Mrs. Haverford," Sierra gasped. Her voice was a raw whisper, but it cut through the expensive silence like a knife. "Stop. Please stop." "Sierra, what is the meaning of this?" I stammered, heat flooding my face. "I am in the most important meeting of my life. You cannot be in here." "Please," she begged, ignoring my fury. She took a step closer, her eyes locked on mine. They were dark and intense, and for the first time I saw a fire in them I'd never recognized. "He's deceiving you. Don't sign." The air in the room turned to ice. "What?" I hissed, the word escaping me. Valerio chuckled. It was a low, smooth sound, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Ah, Clarissa, it seems the young lady is perhaps worried about her mother's employment, a common concern during a transition." He turned his smile on Sierra. "I assure you, miss, all current staff will be retained. Your mother's position is perfectly secure." "This isn't about my mother's job," Sierra shot back, her voice gaining strength. "Enough!" I slammed my hand on the table, the pen clattering from my fingers. "Sierra, you will leave this room, now. You are fired, both of you. Get out." "Mrs. Haverford, you have to listen to me," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "Valerio Trovato is not who he says he is." The silence that followed was absolute. Valerio's fingers tapped once on the table, a single sharp sound. It was the only sign of impatience, but it sent a chill straight down my spine. "Miss," Valerio said, his tone still pleasant but laced with steel, "that is a very serious accusation, a slanderous one. I hope you have proof." Sierra's face faltered. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at me, and her expression was no longer desperate. It was pity. "I'm trying to save your life, Mrs. Haverford." "My life?" I laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "You're being hysterical. Mr. Trovato is offering this company a future, a legitimate legal future. Now get out before I have security drag you out." "It's not legitimate," Sierra whispered, "and if you sign that paper, you won't be alive to see the money." Valerio's smile never wavered, but I saw him flick his eyes to his watch. A simple gesture, but it felt wrong. "I think," I said, my voice shaking with humiliation and a sudden, unwelcome spike of doubt, "we need to postpone this meeting." "Clarissa," Valerio's voice was soft, almost fatherly, "don't let this unfortunate outburst destroy your company. You are hemorrhaging money. My reports show you'll be insolvent in 6 months. You know I'm right." He was. The quarterly reports in my safe were a death sentence. Without this deal, the layoffs would start Monday. Sierra physically stepped between me and the contract. Her small frame seemed to command the room. "I know you don't trust me. I know what I am to you. But my mother overheard something. About you." "What?" I snapped, despite myself. Sierra glanced at Valerio, then back at me. Her voice was barely audible. "They're going to kill you as soon as you sign." Valerio stood straightening his tie with practiced ease. The mask was back in place. "Emotions are clearly running high. Perhaps you're right, Clarissa. We will reconvene tomorrow. Give yourself time to manage your domestic situation." He gathered his leather-bound portfolio. "I will await your call." As he walked past me, he paused. "A word of advice," he murmured, so low only I could hear. "Paranoia is a luxury a woman in your position cannot afford. Don't let the delusions of a servant girl cost you everything." He and his men swept out of the room, leaving a vacuum of cold air and the scent of expensive cologne. I rounded on Sierra. My hands were shaking so hard I had to grip the back of my chair. "Do you have any idea what you have just done?" "I know exactly what I did," Sierra said. Her voice was steady now, the panic replaced by a grim certainty. "I just bought you one more day to stay alive. You bought me nothing. You cost me everything. That was $280 million, you foolish, hysterical girl. That was this company's future. That was Richard's legacy." "It was a lie, Mrs. Haverford." "How do you know? What something did your mother overhear? A scrap of conversation she misunderstood?" I was pacing, my rage so hot I felt dizzy. "Mariella barely speaks English." "She speaks fluent Spanish," Sierra said quietly. "And so do Mr. Trovato's associates. They were in the garden this morning while he was on the phone. They didn't know she was there. They didn't know she could understand every word." "Get out," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Get your mother, pack your things, and get off my property. I never want to see you again." Sierra just looked at me. That pity was back in her eyes, and it made me want to scream. She didn't argue. She didn't plead. She just turned and walked out, leaving me alone in the silent conference room. The unsigned contract lay on the table. It looked like a mockery. I stalked to my office and slammed the door. I collapsed into my chair, the adrenaline draining away, leaving me cold and terrified. Was I a fool? Had I just thrown away my only chance on the word of a housekeeper's daughter? Or had I just narrowly escaped a bullet? Sleep was impossible. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, Sierra's words echoing in the dark. They're going to kill you. It was absurd, but the doubt was a fog seeping under the door. The way Valerio's men had tensed, the subtle glance at his watch, the coldness in his eyes when he left. I had built my life on logic and numbers, but something about this felt wrong. By 4 a.m., I couldn't stand it. I was a businesswoman. I had resources. I wasn't going to let my company die because of a feeling. I picked up my phone and called a man I kept on retainer, a private investigator. Arthur, it's Clarissa Haverford. I need a deep dive background check. Rushed. Yes, I know what time it is. Who's the target? His gravelly voice asked. Valerio Trovato, an investor. I need to know everything. I don't care what it costs. I need it by morning. I spent the next 3 hours pacing my study, a cup of bitter coffee in my hand. This was madness. I was second-guessing the most important deal of my life based on a servant's warning. I felt weak, pathetic. At 7:15 a.m., my laptop chimed, an email from Arthur. The subject line, Re Trovato V, expedited report. My heart pounded as I opened it. It was a full dossier, financial statements, news articles, a biography. I scanned it, my breath held. Valerio Trovato, it read, celebrated Italian-American financier, key stakeholder in multinational shipping consortium, praised in the Financial Times for his Midas touch with struggling legacy companies. I clicked the links. There he was, shaking hands with a senator. There he was on the cover of Forbes Europe, the man who rebuilds empires. His portfolio was vast, diversified, and completely legitimate. The relief was so profound I nearly wept. It was real. The deal was real. The relief hardened quick as cement into a cold, white-hot fury. Sierra. She hadn't just been mistaken. This wasn't paranoia. This was a deliberate, malicious attempt at sabotage. Why? Was she trying to blackmail me? Extort money? Did she think I'd pay her to go away and let the deal proceed? My hands, which had been trembling with fear, were now steady with rage. I'd fired her. But that wasn't enough. I'd nearly lost everything because of her. I grabbed my phone and dialed Valerio's number. He answered on the second ring. Clarissa. His voice was warm but guarded. I was hoping you'd call. Valerio, I cannot apologize enough for what happened yesterday, I said, my voice crisp and professional. It was an unconscionable breach. The employee involved and her mother have been terminated. It will not happen again. There was a pause. That is reassuring, he said, but the young woman seemed quite distressed, and she made some very colorful accusations. She is a disgruntled, unstable employee, I said, the lie tasting like ash, but I needed him to believe it. My PI report was my new Bible. I believe it was a pathetic attempt at extortion. She thought she could derail the meeting and then demand money to fix it. I am having my lawyers handle it. Valerio let out a long breath. Ah, Clarissa. That makes a terrible kind of sense. The world is full of such people, sadly. You must be exhausted. I'm just mortified, I said, and I am more committed to this partnership than ever. Can we please proceed? Today? Of course, he said, his warmth returning. But perhaps not at your office. The atmosphere there is compromised. I have a private suite at the Montclair Hotel. We can finalize everything there. No interruptions, no unexpected visitors. The Montclair? Yes, I said, nodding. That's perfect. What time? Shall we say 2 o'clock? And Clarissa? Perhaps it's best if you come alone. These documents are sensitive, and after yesterday, it's best we limit the audience. Just you, me, and my associates to witness the signing. I understand completely, I said. 2 o'clock. I'll be there. I hung up, feeling triumphant. I had saved the deal. I had crushed Sierra's little rebellion. Haverford Imports was back on track. I was heading out the door when my secretary buzzed. Mrs. Haverford, that young woman Sierra, is here again. She says it's life or death. I told her you— Let her in, I said, my voice cold. I wanted to see her face when I told her she'd failed. Sierra walked into my office. She looked like she hadn't slept, her eyes red-rimmed but blazing with that same infuriating intensity. Mrs. Haverford, I know you fired me. I know you hate me. But you cannot go to that meeting. Oh, I'm going, I said, leaning back in my chair. I just got off the phone with Mr. Travato. We're signing it too. No. Please, you don't understand. No, Sierra, you don't understand. I spun my laptop around and tapped the screen, showing her Arthur's report. This is a real-time, deep-dive investigation by a man I trust implicitly. Valerio Travato is one of the most respected investors in Europe. He's legitimate. He's real. Sierra glanced at the screen, her face confused. What is this? This isn't right. This, Sierra, is proof. Proof that you are either lying or delusional. So tell me, which is it? What was your plan? Humiliate me, kill the deal, and then what? Ask for $10,000 to disappear? 50? Her face went pale, then red. I'm not trying to extort you. I'm trying to save you. This report, it has to be fake. It's part of the lie. Oh, of course. I laughed. He fooled the Financial Times. He fooled Forbes. He fooled my investigator. But he couldn't fool you, the housekeeper's daughter. Get out of my office. Look. She threw a manila envelope on my desk. It scattered a half-dozen grainy photographs. I picked one up. It was Valerio standing outside my office building yesterday. But he wasn't alone. He was flanked by the 2 men from the conference room. One of them I now saw had a vicious scar running from his ear to his jaw. They didn't look like lawyers. They looked like muscle. Who are these men? I asked, my voice wavering for a split second. I don't know their names, Sierra said, her voice dropping, but my mother knows the type. She saw men like this back in El Salvador, before we fled. They aren't associates, Mrs. Haverford. They're enforcers. Plenty of wealthy men have security, I said, tossing the photo down. The PI report was my shield. It's standard practice for a billionaire. Do billionaires' security teams speak in code about cleaning up loose ends? Sierra's shoulders sagged. He's going to kill you, Mrs. Haverford. I don't know why, but I know he is. I stood up. Your story is compelling, Sierra, but I have facts. I tapped the PI report. You have photos of men in suits. The meeting is at 2 at the Montclair Hotel, and I am going. Her face crumpled. The Montclair, a hotel suite. He's isolating you. Don't you see? You can't go alone. My business is none of your concern. Now leave before I call the real police and have you arrested for trespassing and harassment. Sierra didn't move. She just watched me, that pity back in her eyes. Yesterday, she said, her voice flat, my mother heard them talking. After you postponed, they were angry. Valerio was furious. He said, La Viuda, the widow, was supposed to sign. Now she's suspicious. I froze. La Viuda. One of the other men, Sierra continued, the one with the scar, asked if they should just take the money and run. Valerio said no. He said they needed your signature first. They needed it to make the transfer look legitimate. Transfer of what? I whispered. I don't know. But then he said, after the signature, they would hacer la limpieza, the cleanup. That's when my mother ran. That's when I came to find you. I stared at her. The detail was so specific. La viuda, la limpieza. My PI report seemed to thin, to become flimsy, like a prop. But $280 million, the company, Richard's legacy. My entire life was balanced on that signature. If she was wrong, if I backed out now because of a badly translated conversation, I would be ruined, and I'd be ruined for nothing. I have to go, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I have to know. If I don't show and this is all a mistake, I'll never forgive myself. Then I'm going with you, Sierra said. Absolutely not. Not to the meeting, she said quickly. To the hotel. I'll wait in the lobby. I'll sit in the business center. If you're not down in 1 hour, I'll call the police. And tell them what? I laughed, the sound hollow. That you overheard some Spanish? That I'm with a man who was on the cover of Forbes? They'll laugh at you. I don't care, Sierra said, her jaw set with a stubbornness that was suddenly, shockingly familiar. I'll pull the fire alarm, I'll do something, but I'm not letting you go in there alone. I studied her. This slip of a girl, this nobody, was willing to place herself in the middle of something she believed was dangerous, all for me, a woman who had barely acknowledged her existence for 15 years. Why? I asked. Why are you doing this? Because someone has to, she said simply. A part of me was still convinced she was wrong, that my PI was right, and that this was all a tragic, hysterical misunderstanding. But another colder part of me saw the men in the photos. I heard the word limpieza. Fine, I said, against my better judgment. You wait in the lobby. You do not come up. You do not interfere. If I'm not back down by 3:30, call the police. Thank you, she said, relief flooding her face. As I grabbed my briefcase, a small, dark blue Honda Civic pulled out of my driveway and followed my sedan at a discreet distance. By the time I reached the Montclair Hotel, my hands were steady on the wheel, but my mind was a screaming chaos. By evening, I would either be the savior of Haverford Imports or I'd be dead. The lobby of the Montclair was all marble floors and crystal chandeliers. It whispered wealth, not shouted it. I spotted Sierra immediately, tucked into a wingback chair near the elevators, a thick textbook open on her lap. She looked exactly like a college student cramming for an exam. Our eyes met. She gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. My heart hammered as the elevator climbed to the 20th floor. The penthouse. Suite 2008 was at the end of the hall, a heavy mahogany door that looked more like an apartment entrance than a hotel room. Valerio answered on the first knock. My breath caught. The charming, tailored businessman was gone. He wore dark jeans and a black cashmere sweater that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. His silver hair was slightly mussed, and his eyes were different. There was a flat, predatory gleam in them. Clarissa, he said, stepping aside, right on time. The suite was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, but I barely saw the view. The 3 other men were there, the 2 from the photos, and a third younger man I didn't recognize. They weren't sitting politely. The scarred man was by the window, watching the street below. Another was at the wet bar, polishing a glass. The third was near the hallway, just standing. I thought we were meeting alone, I said, my voice sounding tight. Just my associates, Valerio replied smoothly, gesturing to a dining table where the contract papers were spread out. Purely ceremonial, to witness the signing. Everything felt wrong. The casual clothes, the armed guards pretending to be associates, the way Valerio moved, like a wolf in his own den. Shall we? He asked, pulling out a chair for me. I sat. The contract was there. The signature line was there. 280 million salvation. I picked up the pen. My hand was shaking again, but not from excitement, from raw animal fear. Just as I was about to sign, my phone buzzed on the table. I'm sorry, I said, glancing at the screen. It was Sierra. I should take this. It might be my office. Valerio's expression tightened. Surely it can wait, Clarissa. We are on the very brink of our new future. That hint of urgency in his voice, The impatience, it made me answer the call. Mrs. Hartwell? Sierra's voice was breathless, panicked, and high-pitched. Mrs. Hartwell, get out of there. Get out right now. Sierra, I can't talk, I whispered, turning my back slightly to Valerio. I'm in the business center, she frantically whispered. That PI report, it was fake. It was too easy. I knew something was wrong, so I started digging myself, not on his name, but on the shell companies your lawyer vetted. What are you talking about? He's not Valerio Trovato, she hissed. The real Valerio Trovato died 3 years ago in a car crash in Naples. I'm looking at the obituary right now. The man in that room, he's a ghost. He stole a dead man's identity. The pen slipped from my fingers, clattering loudly on the polished wood. I looked up. Valerio was watching me, his head tilted, that charming smile gone, replaced by a look of cold, calculating assessment. Is everything all right, Clarissa? He asked. Yes. Yes, I stammered, ending the call. A minor issue at the plant, a burst pipe. My mind was screaming. A dead man's identity, the fake PI report, the men in the room, la limpieza. Sierra was right. She had been right about everything. Actually, I said, standing up so quickly my chair scraped backward, I'm feeling suddenly unwell. A migraine. We must postpone. I reached for my briefcase. The scarred man moved, not fast, but with a terrible, fluid grace. He was between me and the door before I'd taken 2 steps. I don't think so, Valerio said. His voice had changed. The accent was thicker, the velvet stripped away, leaving only steel. Sit down, Clarissa. I am leaving, I said, trying to inject authority into my voice. No, he said, not unkindly. You are not. Sit down. I looked at the scarred man. His hand was inside his jacket again. I slowly, very slowly, sat back down. You look pale, Clarissa, Valerio said, taking the seat beside me. Perhaps some water. He gestured to the man at the bar, who started to pour a glass. As the man turned, I saw it clearly. A black shoulder holster, the dark metal of a pistol grip stark against his white shirt. What do you want? I whispered. What I've wanted from the beginning, Clarissa, he said. Your signature. But if you're not, if the money isn't real. Oh, the money is very real, he laughed. He pulled out his phone, opened an app, and showed me the screen. A bank account. The balance. 280,000 segrigis. The funds are genuine, he said. The bank is real. The only falsehood is me. Then who are you? I am a man who needs to wash a very large, very dirty sum of money, he said, as if discussing the weather. Your company, Haverford Imports, it's perfect. A respected, decades-old family business, just struggling enough to desperately need a miracle investment. Stable enough to handle the transactions without raising red flags, you are the perfect front. The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't a partnership. It was an infection. He was going to pour his criminal money through Richard's company, tainting it forever. And after you've laundered it? I asked, my blood cold. Valerio's smile was almost sad. Well, that is the unfortunate part. You would know too much, Clarissa. You would be a liability, a loose end. La limpieza. My phone buzzed on the table, a text from Sierra. Are you okay? Valerio glanced at it. Your little friend in the lobby. She's persistent. What did she tell you on that call, I wonder? My silence was all the answer he needed. Ah, he nodded. She found the obituary. Clever girl. I underestimated her. He gestured to the scarred man who moved toward my phone. Call her, Valerio commanded. What? Call your little friend. Tell her to come up. Tell her you forgot a file and need her to bring it from your car. No, I said, the word coming out stronger than I felt. I will not drag her into this. She has nothing to do with this. Clarissa, You misunderstand, Valerio said, his patience wearing thin. He nodded to the man at the bar who pulled out his own phone, tapped a few buttons, and handed it to Valerio. Valerio turned the screen to me. It was a live feed from a security camera aimed at the wingback chairs in the lobby. Sierra was still there, but she wasn't reading. She was on her phone, her face tight with worry. My man has been in the lobby for an hour, Valerio said. He knows what car she drives. He knows she lives with her mother, Mariela, in the little apartment above your garage. The blood drained from my face. So, you have a choice, Valerio said softly. She comes up here willingly as our insurance policy, or my associate escorts her up. Either way, she is joining our party. How we begin is up to you. The threat was absolute. I had led her right into this. My arrogance, my refusal to listen, had trapped her. What guarantee do I have that you'll let either of us go? Valerio laughed, a genuine, amused sound. You have none. But I give you my word, Clarissa, that if you don't cooperate, what happens to you both will be considerably slower. My hand shook as I reached for my phone. I was a dead woman, and now, because of me, so was Sierra. I unlocked my phone, Valerio's eyes burning into me. His scarred associate stood over my shoulder, close enough for me to smell the gun oil on his jacket. Make it convincing, Valerio murmured. Before I could dial, my phone rang. Sierra's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Valerio commanded. Speakerphone, now. My finger trembled as I pressed the green icon and then the speaker button. The suite filled with Sierra's voice, tight with a new kind of urgency. Mrs. Hartwell, are you still there? I'm here, Sierra, I said, trying to keep my voice from breaking. I found something else, something bigger. It's not just him. It's about your family. It's about your husband. Valerio's eyes sharpened. He leaned forward, his focus absolute. The other men in the room tensed. Sierra, I can't talk right now, I pleaded, trying to warn her off. Mrs. Hartwell, please listen, she insisted. I know why he targeted you. It's not random. He knew Richard. The words hit me like a physical blow. Richard? That's impossible, I whispered. Your husband's accident 8 years ago, Sierra's voice cracked. It wasn't an accident. Valerio was watching me, a slow, cruel smile spreading across his face. He knew. Sierra, you need to leave, I begged, tears welling in my eyes. Leave the hotel. Run. Right now. I can't. Her voice dropped to a terrified whisper. They're watching me. There are 2 new men in the lobby. They're not even hiding it. They're just staring at me. Valerio gestured to his man, who nodded. Tell her to come up, Valerio said softly. Tell her you need her help. Now. Sierra, I said, a sob catching in my throat. I need you to come to the suite, 2008. I need your help with something. There was a long, terrible silence on the line. Mrs. Hartwell, Sierra said, her voice suddenly, shockingly calm. Are you all right? You sound strange. Just come up, please. I wept. Another pause. Then, Mrs. Hartwell, if you are in trouble, if they are making you say this, say the word contract again. I gasped. Smart. My God, she was so smart. The contract is here, Sierra, I said, emphasizing the word. We're just discussing the final terms of the contract. I'm coming up, she said, and the line went dead. Valerio settled back in his chair, looking immensely pleased. A contract code. How clever. She is a resourceful little thing, isn't she? He looked at me, his smile widening. You really don't know who she is, do you, Clarissa? Your faithful housekeeper's daughter. She's not quite what she appears to be. Before I could ask what he meant, there was a sharp knock on the suite door. The scarred man opened it. Sierra walked in. Her face was pale, but her eyes were flinty. She took in the scene in a single sweeping glance. Me, crying at the table. Valerio, looking like a king on his throne. The armed men blocking the exits. "Mrs. Hartwell," she said, her voice steady. "Are you hurt?" "Not yet," Valerio answered for me, "but the evening is still young." Sierra's jaw tightened. She turned her gaze on Valerio, and the look in her eyes was not fear. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. "Let her go," Sierra said. "Your business is with me." Valerio raised an eyebrow. "Is it? How fascinating." "And why, pray tell, would my multi-million-dollar business be with a community college student?" "Because I'm not just a community college student," Sierra said, her voice ringing with authority, "and I'm not the housekeeper's daughter." I stared at her, my mind unable to process the words. "Sierra, what are you saying?" Sierra turned to me, and for the first time in 15 years, I truly saw her. The stubborn set of her jaw, the dark, intelligent eyes, the way she held her shoulders, defiant and strong. It was like looking at a ghost. "Mrs. Haverford—" "Clarissa," she said softly. "Richard Haverford was my father." The room tilted. The air rushed from my lungs. I gripped the arms of my chair to keep from falling. "No," I whispered. "That's impossible. Richard. We couldn't have children. He would never—" "He didn't know," Sierra said quickly, her eyes softening. "I don't think he ever knew." Valerio clapped, a single sharp, mocking sound. "Oh, this is better than I could have hoped. A family reunion." "Shut up!" Sierra snapped, and the voice that came out of her was so purely, shockingly Richard that my heart stopped. She turned back to me, the story tumbling out of her. My mother, her name was Mariela Santos. She was a secretary at Haverford Imports 29 years ago, before you and he were even married. The pieces began to slam into place with horrifying clarity. Mariela's arrival 15 years ago, already knowing how Richard liked his coffee, how he organized his files. I thought she was just diligent. "He had an affair," I said, the words numb on my tongue. "A brief one," Sierra confirmed. "It ended the week he got engaged to you. She found out she was pregnant a month later. She never told him. She thought it would be better that way. She married another man who died when I was young. But why?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Why come work for me? Why put you in my house? For 15 years? Sierra's composure finally cracked. "Because she wanted me to know him," she whispered. "She wanted me to see the man my father was, to see the family he built. She wanted me to be close to him, even if he couldn't know who I was." "She thought she'd tell him someday," I finished, the realization a cold stone in my stomach. "Yes, but then he died, and it was too late." "What a touching story," Valerio interrupted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "A true tragedy. Now that the introductions are over, shall we return to the contract?" "You killed him," Sierra said. She wasn't speaking to me. She had turned to Valerio, her entire body vibrating with a rage that eclipsed my own. "You killed my father." Valerio shrugged, a casual, dismissive gesture. He was a problem, an annoyance. He was asking questions. "What questions?" I demanded. "About my shipping irregularities," Valerio sneered. "Your husband was annoyingly honest. He'd stumbled onto some of my import manifests, noticed discrepancies. He was digging. He was going to go to the authorities. He had to be stopped." "So you murdered him," I said, my voice dead. "I merely arranged for his car to have mechanical difficulties on a very stormy night, on a very dangerous stretch of road. The rest," he smiled, "was an act of God." "You bastard," Sierra breathed. "And now," Valerio continued, his good humor restored, "his widow and his secret love child are both going to help me clean 280 million. The poetry of it is simply delicious. He gestured to the scarred man, who moved to stand directly behind Sierra's chair, placing a heavy hand on her shoulder. The threat was unmistakable. "Don't," Sierra said to me, her eyes locking on mine. "Clarissa, do not sign that paper." "I can't let him hurt you," I sobbed, reaching for the pen. "You already hurt me," Sierra replied, her voice soft but steady. "Every day for 15 years. You hurt me by looking through me, by treating me like I was invisible." I flinched as if she'd slapped me. She was right. "But I still tried to save you," she continued, "because that's what family does." Valerio's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it and his smile faltered. "It seems," he said, frowning, "we have a complication. Hotel security is inquiring about our guests." The scarred man leaned in and whispered something rapid fire in Spanish. "We need to accelerate this," Valerio said, his casual demeanor evaporating. He pointed a finger at me. "Clarissa, sign now, or I shoot her in the knee, and then I will count to 10 and I will shoot her in the other one." "1, he began. I gripped the pen. My mind was blank with terror. 2. Sierra caught my eye. She was terrified, I could see it, but beneath the fear, she mouthed 2 words. "Trust me." 3. Trust her? We were trapped. We were dead. 4. That's when I heard it. A faint, distant sound. A wail. Sirens. 5. Valerio's phone buzzed again, frantically. He looked at it and his face went white. 6. The sirens were closer. Much closer. 7. The scarred man hissed. "Boss, they're here. On the street." 8. Valerio's eyes snapped to Sierra. She was watching him, not with fear, but with a cold, terrifying satisfaction. "What did you do?" he demanded. 9. Sierra smiled, and in that smile I saw Richard, confident, defiant. "I'm a community college student, Valerio," she said, her voice conversational. "At a very good community college. I'm a cybersecurity major." Valerio's face, already pale, turned to ash. "When I was in the business center," Sierra continued, "I wasn't just looking up obituaries. I was working. You see, I've been digging into your legitimate shell companies for 6 months, ever since you first contacted Clarissa. You what? I found the real bank records, the transaction histories, the offshore accounts, the entire network, and I found out where the $280 million really came from." The sirens were deafening now, stopping directly below the hotel. "It's stolen money," Sierra said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Stolen from a pension fund in Miami, money belonging to firefighters, teachers, and cops." "You're lying," Valerio whispered. "Am I?" Sierra asked. "I compiled everything, a complete beautiful data package on your entire operation. And when I went to the business center, I emailed it. To the FBI, to the DEA, to the Treasury Department. It was sent on a 1-hour timer. That timer," she glanced at the clock on the wall, "expired 10 minutes ago." Valerio shot to his feet, his chair crashing to the floor. "You little bitch!" "You're right about one thing, though," Sierra said. "I didn't have proof that you were in this room or that you were the one threatening Clarissa." Sierra reached slowly into the pocket of her jeans. She pulled out a small silver digital recorder and held it up. The small red REC light was glowing brightly. "But I have your entire confession from the last 15 minutes, she said simply. "Every threat, every admission, every single word about my father's murder. It's all right here." Valerio stared at the recorder, his eyes wide with disbelief. He was ruined. "Get it," he snarled. The scarred man moved. He wasn't fast, he was instant. He didn't lunge. He took one step and his hand flashed out, snatching the recorder from Sierra's grasp. Before she could even react, he smashed it down on the marble edge of the dining table. It shattered into a dozen pieces of plastic and metal. The battery skittered across the floor. Valerio let out a bark of laughter. "Your ace!" he panted, a wild look in his eyes. "Gone! You have nothing. It's your word against mine." He pulled a pistol from the small of his back and pointed it directly at my head. "Your FBI friends are outside, but they're not in this room. You're all still dead." Sierra didn't even look at the broken recorder. She just looked at Valerio, and she smirked. "That was for the local cops, Valerio," she said, "a backup, in case the FBI was slow." What are you talking about?" "You think I'm the only one who investigated you?" Sierra's voice was ice. "I had help, years ago." She looked at me. "Clarissa, do you remember Richard mentioning an IT intern about 10 years ago? A kid who was helping him trace those shipping irregularities?" My breath hitched. That was you." "I was 18, Sierra said, "working under my mother's maiden name, Santos. Your husband, my father, was the only person in that entire company who saw me, who thought I was smart." Her voice softened. "He never knew who I was, but he believed in me. He taught me how to follow the money. When he died, I never stopped looking. I've been building this case for 8 years. The evidence I sent the FBI wasn't from tonight," she said to Valerio. "It was from a decade of work, my father's work and mine." The suite door didn't open. It exploded. It burst inward in a shower of mahogany splinters. 2 flashbang grenades rolled across the marble floor, detonating with a blinding white light and a deafening crack. Tactical geared FBI agents poured through the smoking doorway, a black tide of armor and weapons. "FBI, get down! Hands on your head, now!" Valerio's men, blinded and deafened, didn't stand a chance. They were on the floor, zip-tied in seconds. Only Valerio remained standing, disoriented, his gun wavering between me and Sierra. "Drop the weapon!" a man in a suit shouted, his own pistol leveled at Valerio's chest. "It's over!" Valerio's eyes were wild. He was a cornered animal. He tightened his grip, aiming at Sierra, and Sierra stepped in front of me. "Go ahead," she said, her voice calm in the chaos. "Shoot me, but killing Richard Haverford's daughter won't get your $280 million back. It's already frozen. It won't erase the 8 years of evidence they have. It's over." Valerio's hand trembled. He looked at the guns pointed at him. He looked at the woman he'd underestimated. He looked at the empire he had just lost. The pistol clattered to the floor. Within seconds, agents had him slammed against the wall. The man in the suit holstered his weapon and approached us. "Mrs. Haverford, Miss Santos," he said. "I'm Agent Marshall. Are you injured?" We're fine," I managed, my legs feeling like water. "Miss Santos," Agent Marshall said, turning to Sierra with a look of pure professional admiration. "The data package you provided, it was extraordinary. We've been trying to pin Travado, or whatever his name is, for 5 years. Your father's initial files, your new data, you just dismantled his entire global operation. You're a hero." Sierra just nodded, her attention on me. "Clarissa," she said, using my name for the first time, "we should get you checked out." "I'm fine," I said. "Sloan, no, Sierra, I know," she said. Hours passed in a blur of statements, interviews, and paramedics. We were kept in separate rooms at a federal building, recounting every detail. I found myself constantly looking toward the door, needing to see her to make sure she was real. When we were finally released, the sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and orange. We stood on the steps of the federal building, the cool morning air a shock after the recycled air inside. "So," I said, the silence between us vast and awkward. What happens now?" Sierra adjusted the strap of her backpack. She looked like a college student again, exhausted and uncertain. I suppose my mother and I should find a new place to live. This changes everything. Does it have to? I asked. She looked at me, surprised. Sierra, I said, my voice thick. For 15 years, my husband's daughter, Richard's daughter, was living in my house, and I never saw you. I treated you like furniture, and today, you saved my life. You saved my company. You saved his legacy. You don't owe me anything, Clarissa, she said quietly. I owe you everything, I insisted. You could have walked away. You could have let me sign that paper and be murdered. God knows I deserved it after how I treated you, but you didn't. Your family, she said simply. That's what family does. Is it? I took a shaky breath. I'm not sure I know what that means anymore. Would you be willing to help me learn? A small, watery smile touched her lips. That same smile, Richard's smile. I'd like that. Good, I said, a new strength flowing into me. Because I have a proposition for you. Haverford Imports is going to need a new chief technology officer. Someone who can rebuild our entire cybersecurity from the ground up. Someone who can trace financial irregularities and protect us from people like Valerio. Clarissa, you don't have to. I'm not offering you a job out of guilt, I interrupted. I'm offering it because you're the most brilliant, brave, and resourceful person I have ever met. I'm offering it because you're Richard's daughter, and this company is your birthright. Tears welled in her eyes. You mean that? I mean every word, I said. We have a lot of work to do. We have a company to save. For real this time. 1 year later, I stood in the conference room. It was unrecognizable. The heavy, dark wood and suffocating drapes were gone, replaced with glass, steel, and light. Sierra stood at the head of the new table, clicking through a presentation. She wore a sharp blazer, her hair in a sleek, professional cut. Around her neck, on a simple silver chain, she wore Richard's wedding ring. And as you can see from the Q4 projections, she said, her voice clear and confident, our new secured logistics platform has increased revenue by 40%. Client retention is at 98%. We have, in fact, a waiting list. After the applause from our new partners died down, she and I walked back to Richard's old office. Now it was hers. You were incredible, I said, meaning it. We were incredible, she corrected, smiling. I have something for you, I said, handing her a small framed photo I'd found tucked in the back of Richard's old desk. I'd almost thrown it out. It was a picture of a much younger Richard, 29 years ago, standing next to a young, radiant woman, Mariella. They were both laughing, caught in a moment of pure, unguarded joy. Sierra took it, her hands trembling slightly. Her mother had passed away 6 months ago, peacefully, in her sleep. She kept this hidden, Sierra said softly. She was so afraid you'd find it. She was always so afraid. She gave me the greatest gift imaginable, I said, touching the glass over Richard's smiling face. She gave me you. And you, Sierra replied, her eyes meeting mine, gave me a chance to know him by saving what he built. We stood together, watching the sunset through the massive window. Do you think he'd be proud? I asked. Sierra touched the ring at her neck. I think he'd be proud that his family finally found each other. His family? Us? Valerio was serving 3 consecutive life sentences. His network was dismantled, the pension money returned. Justice had been served. But as Sierra and I locked up the office, a new, comfortable silence between us, I knew that justice was only part of the story. The real victory was this, the quiet, unshakable knowledge that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up. It's about who steps in front of the bullet. And sometimes, if you're very, very lucky, you get a second chance to see the people who were right in front of you all along. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.